Is it working? It might be working. Okay. We're gonna go through a bunch of different papers and books. Maybe take 30 minutes to read over a lot of things involving AI safety. You can see I'm already starting to prepare this like big mind map here. I'm making a video for just like everything you need to know about AI safety, or at least what it looks like after studying it for 2 weeks. And so this is sort of like the behind the scenes of how the whole thing is being made. You can just watch me read all these books, and if you have other work to do, you can also just chug along for the ride. Where was I? So I think I had a few different things going on. 1 second. Had a bunch of different sources that I had written out. Things that I knew I needed to start working on. Let me find it. Yeah. I think it's this here. Sort of all the different things that I needed to study and prepare for ahead of the... Oh, geez, there's more. Oh my god. This is crazy. How am I going to go through all of this in 2 weeks? And, oh, Jesus, there's even more. Oh my god. Oh, what is this animal? Oh, you can't see it. See it? I think it's kind of like a centipede or something like that. Okay. So, let's keep going. Alright, so there's a lot of these different sources. How should I even begin? I don't even think I'm... Jesus, how should I think about this? And I'm also trying to construct this narrative piece here. And perhaps we can start talking about the AI winters. There is the book Superintelligence. There's different types of risk, and perhaps we could start with that. I mean, when we think about risk, there are different things to keep in mind. One might be like short-term risk. So how about, there's a lot of different categories. So let's just start with these short-term risk categories and then medium-term risk categories. Different things to talk about. Here I think there's already like job redefinition, and then there's like job displacement. And here there's like long-term risk categories, and things might be state redefinition, and then the most important redefinition is something that I am very interested about. We could talk about that. Jesus. The next thing would be something like existential risk, and then there is the impact. How about medium-term impact? Might just be like the web and the internet and sort of like the experience involving that. And then here it might just also just be, let's say, like disinformation. And here it might just be like, where does terrorism and different things like that fit in? I guess medium might just be, okay, so medium and medium might be inequality, but how about long term? I think we would put inequality, wealth inequality. And then these things are sort of associated with job displacement, but not necessarily. And then medium-term risk categories, I think it's going to be... Yeah, so this is labor. Web and the internet. There's all of the harmful effects it could have on... Well, there's like governments on one hand, and then there's various groups that might be marginalized in different ways, or perhaps not very well represented in data, or that... How should I think about that? Okay, like the impact on groups. There's short-term impact on groups. But I suspect, impact on differential impact on groups. And then existential risk. I mean, each of these things you could just write so many different books about. Okay, job displacement, disinformation. I want to see if there's still more categories first. And then perhaps after I map out the categories, then we can go and zoom into each one of these things and kind of study them in more detail. Okay, so Job displacement, disinformation. What about things like the erosion of democracies and different things like that? Perhaps let's just call this medium term. Weaponization by states, by newly empowered actors. Okay. I'm starting to get a hang of this. I think there are certain things that I already said for sure I have to start with. So let's filter by status being for sure a to-do. I think there were a couple. Yeah, look at this. Tessera, Taxonomy and Analysis of Societal Scale Risk from AI by Stuart Russell in June. Oh my god. Yeah, this is it. Oh, it's only 18 pages. Okay. Let's do it. While several recent works have identified societal scale and extinction level risks to humanity arising from AI, few have attempted an exhaustive taxonomy of such risks. This is what we're looking for. Many exhaustive taxonomies are possible and some are useful, particularly if they reveal new risks. This paper explores a taxonomy based on accountability. Okay, so that's cool. It's a taxonomy based on this. So, yeah, I suppose that you can have different kind of dimensions of taxonomizing. How do we take really good notes on this? Let me see. Yeah. So let's add another thing here. We call this, let me put this here. Tessera. Is that what we called it? I think that's what we called it. Okay. I'm also gonna start, I'm gonna make this public, why not? How do you make it public? Can I make this public? Public. Oh, let's see what happens. This is live. Yeah. Okay. Hello world. Okay. So now let's bring this back. Tessera. Is that what he called it? Yep, Tessera. Okay. So now let's go back to study. And okay, we'll just create it's like a whole new space, and we'll just call this. This is gonna be sort of like a taxonomy space. Taxonomies. Okay, taxonomies. In here, what we want to do is we want to add Tessera. Yep. Move it up, move it up, move it up, move it up. Donne. Alright. Taxonomy and analysis, societal scale risk from AI. Okay, this is based on accountability, so based on accountability. Dimension of division. Various risk types and how each of them could play out. Okay. A few weeks ago, a public statement was signed by leading scientists and executives in AI stating that mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war. This represents a significant increase in coordinated concern for human extinction risk arising from AI technology. It implies more generally that catastrophic societal scale risk from AI should be taken as a serious concern. In consonance, just a few days ago, President Joe Biden and Rishi Sunak expressed an agreement to work together on AI safety, including multilaterally, citing that last week the pioneers of AI warned us about the scale of the challenge. Meanwhile, in recent years, national governments throughout the world have begun to address societal scale risk from AI. In 2018, Chinese leader Xi Jinping exhorted the attendees of the World AI Conference to make sure that artificial intelligence is safe, reliable, and controllable. Since then, several AI governance initiatives have emerged in China, including specific measures for generative AI services drafted in April. In Europe, the proposed EU AI Act began in large part as a response to concerns that AI systems may pose risks to the safety and fundamental rights of humans. In the US last year, the White House issued a blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights, addressing challenges posed to democracy today by the use of technology, data, and automated systems in ways that threaten the rights of the American public. Okay. Harms occurring at the scale of individual persons may be distinguished from harms occurring at the scale of an entire society, which we call societal scale harms. This distinction can also be seen somewhat in last year's report from the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology proposing an AI risk management framework. Okay, yeah, I think we're going to go over that one too. I downloaded this. Which distinguished individual harms from societal harms and harms to a system. For example, large-scale harms to the financial system or global supply chain. Harms to individuals and groups should also be considered societal scale when sufficiently widespread. Okay, so that's kind of nice. Societal scale when sufficiently widespread. Okay, so that's already some division. Societal scale. Societal scale harms. Okay. Societal. Okay, so by the scale, basically. So here we have by scale. But how's this? This is not yet by accountability. But here we have societal scale. And then we also have individual. And societal can be harms to a system. Okay. Societal scale harms when sufficiently widespread. Harm to people, individual harm. Okay, so this is when sufficiently widespread. Harm to people, harm to an organization, harm to a system. Okay, so was this a good division? Maybe this wasn't a good division. Okay, let's just call it. I don't like this anymore. I don't like this one anymore. Let's just split it by this. We have harm to people, harm to an enterprise. Harm to a system. I wonder how they split it. Individual civil liberties or rights or physical safety are adversely impacted by an AI system. Group, community harm. Class or group of people is discriminated against as a result of an AI system. Societal harm. Fair access to democratic participation is, oh, I see, repressed by an AI system deployed at scale. Okay, so that's interesting. Individual harm. Group, community harm. And societal harm. Harm that can impact technical systems and business operations. I wonder, these divisions seem a little bit a little bit slippery here. Harm that can impact technical systems. Harm to an organized assembly of interconnected, interdependent elements and resources. For example, large-scale harms to the financial system, which are not sufficiently resilient to adverse AI impacts. Okay. Can also do this. Okay. Oh, I see. So these are societal scale. These big systems and to lots of people. I see. So this is what they consider. This is what they meant insufficiently widespread. Okay. How should societal scale risks be addressed in technical terms? So far, the most research papers at societal scale and existential risks. So far, most research papers addressing societal scale and existential risks focus on misalignment of single advanced AI system. In a recent blog post, Bengio lays out a clear and concise logical argument for this case entitled How Rogue AIs May Arise. I think I have that in the list. However, while misalignment of individual systems remains a problem, it is not the only source of societal scale risk. Extinction risk is no exception. Problems of racism, misinformation, election interference, and other forms of injustice are all risk factors affecting humanity's ability to function and survive as a healthy civilization. It can all arise from interactions between multiple systems or misuse of otherwise aligned systems. While Russell has offered the single human, single machine framing as a model for the relation between the human race and its machines, each construed monolithically, this monolithic view of AI technology is not enough. Safety requires analysis of risks at many scales of the organization simultaneously. Meanwhile, Bengio and Eng together have called for a better articulation of concrete risk from AI, including extinction risk. Okay, do we have an extinction here? Taxonomies by scale, harm to people. I suppose harm to people could be extinction. Could extinction count here? They haven't mentioned this, I think, in this frame, but I think that makes sense. In this paper, we expand our focus somewhat from the implicit assumption that societal harms must result from a single misaligned system and begin to analyze societal scale risks in accordance with the decision tree below. Ah, yeah, nice. Okay. An exhaustive decision tree for classifying societal scale harms from AI tech. Okay. Condition. All technology precipitates harm at a societal scale. Oh, AI technology precipitates. Condition. Is there a unified group such as a company, military, or social movement identifiable as prime? Okay, now we're going into the dimension of division based on accountability. Question. Is there a unified group, such as the company, military, or social movement, identifiable as primarily accountable for creating the AI technology? Suppose there isn't. Okay, well then there's the type 1, diffusion of responsibility. Societal scale harm can arise from AI built by a diffuse collection of creators, where no one is uniquely accountable for the technology's creation or use, as in a classic tragedy of the commons. Okay, that's a kind of nice division here. Okay, I'm curious about the rest now. Okay, what if there is one? Unified creators. Question. Do the creators expect it to have a major impact on society? No. Okay, well, this is just a bigger than expected harm. Harm can result from AI that was not expected to have a large impact at all, such as a lab leak, a surprisingly addictive open source product, or an unexpected repurposing of a research prototype. Okay. I like this. This is like nice. This is like a clean division on the basis almost of like intention. I suppose if you have a sense of the intention, perhaps that you might have different ways to remedy it too. If these people are the ones that have created it, well, perhaps they have different ways to resolve it. But I guess not necessarily. I mean, this is quite. If this, I guess it depends on the level of intelligence and how quickly it could slip out of their hands. Do the creators expect it to have a major impact on society? Yes. Major impact expected. Question. Do the creators expect it to pose a substantial risk to society? No. Okay, well, it was worse than expected. AI intended to have a large societal impact can turn out harmful by mistake, such as a popular product that creates problems and partially solves them only for its users. Do the creators expect it to pose a substantial risk to society? Yes, they did anticipate the harm. Well, did they intend to harm? No. Okay, well, that might be willful indifference. As a side effect of a primary goal like profit or influence, AI creators can willfully allow it to cause widespread societal harms like pollution, resource depletion, mental illness, misinformation, or injustice. Okay, but what if they did in turn? This is why I like this. I think it just cleans up the division quite a bit. So at least on the basis of this, it's not just based on division, like on accountability, but almost like responsibility. I suppose that might be similar. Okay. Or almost like intent. Yeah. Do the creators intend for the AI to harm anyone? Yeah. Harm intended. Okay. Are the AI's creators primarily state actors? Acting on behalf of a government body? No. Okay, well, there's criminal weaponization. One or more criminal entities could create AI to intentionally inflict harm, such as for terrorism or combating law enforcement. Or what if it is? Yeah, state actors. Okay, this is state weaponization. AI deployed by states in war, civil war, or law enforcement can easily yield societal scale harm. What if we begin to see this as almost like... I'm trying to figure out... What if you did a similar sort of analysis with, say, like electricity? Right? Like, what would that have looked like? Ooh, is somebody going to try to use electricity to create harm? Yeah, I mean, it's probably difficult to imagine creating harm without electricity nowadays. Where would this have gotten you if that's what you were going for? I don't know. Let's see. Is there something to be said about this? Let me also see what's happening on YouTube. Create harm. Nice. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's probably difficult to imagine creating harm without electricity nowadays. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. What do we do about this way of splitting things? Let's keep going for a little bit longer. Safety engineers often carry out a fault tree analysis as a way to ensure they have covered all possible failures. The root of a fault tree, is the condition to be avoided, and each branch tests some condition. As long as the branches from each node are logically exhaustive, the leaves necessarily cover all possible circumstances. Typically, branches test whether a given subsystem is working correctly or not, but can also test more general conditions such as the ambient temperature or whether the system is undergoing testing. The decision tree in figure 2 above follows the same basic principles to produce an exhaustive taxonomy. Have people seen a fault tree analysis? Yeah. Overheating of motor. So it's either overuse of motor or excessive current. Excessive current could come from either a shorted fuse or an error in calibration. The overuse of motor could come from a motor running for too long and the motor running for too often. Okay. So the idea is that if you have an exhaustive edges, you'll be able to cover every single case. Exhaustiveness of taxonomy is of course no guarantee of usefulness. For example, an analysis based on whether the day of the month is a prime number would yield an exhaustive two-leaf taxonomy while providing zero analytical benefit. Taxonomy is only to the extent it reveals new risks or recommends helpful interventions. To that end, we have chosen an exhaustive taxonomy based on accountability. Whose actions led to the risk? Were they unified and were they deliberate? Such a taxonomy may be helpful because it is closely tied to the important questions of where to look for emerging risks and what kinds of policy interventions might be effective. This taxonomy in particular surfaces risks arising from unanticipated interactions of many AI systems, as well as risks from deliberate misuse for which combined technical and policy solutions are needed. Many other taxonomies are possible and should be explored. A previous taxonomy of Yampolsky also examined sources of AI risk arising intentionally by mistake or from a system's environment, either pre-deployment or post-deployment. While useful, Yampolsky's taxonomy was non-exhaustive because it presumed a unified intention amongst the creators of a particular AI system. In reality, no well-defined creator's intent that exists. Multiple AI systems are involved and built with different objectives in mind. Yeah, okay, so that's why you need this split. But I do want to look at Yampolsky's work too. So let's just call it Yampolsky 2015 and nest it under this taxonomy. Historically, the risk posed to humanity by advanced AI systems was first recognized in fiction by authors such as Samuel Butler and Carol Capek. Later, warnings were also expressed by computer scientists Alan Turing and Norbert Wiener. With Wiener pinning risk on the difficulty of ensuring the purpose put into the machine would be aligned with actual human preferences, and I.J. Good highlighted the additional threat of rapid recursive self-improvement leading to loss of control. In this century, many have examined the existential risk from superintelligent machines, and various technical approaches have been suggested to address a particular area of AI alignment. Types of risk. Okay. Here we begin in our analysis of risks organized into six risk types. which constitute an exhaustive decision tree for classifying societal harms. Okay, this is the tree. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Types 2 to 6 will classify risk with reference to the intentions of the creators, whether those intentions are being well served by the technology, and whether those. Type 1, by contrast, is premised on no single institution being primarily responsible for creating the problematic technology. Thus, Type 1 serves as a hedge against the taxonomy of 2 through 6 being non-exhaustive. They covered themselves nicely here. Okay. Diffusion of responsibility. So this is by scale. Okay, diffusion of responsibility. Type 1. Will it allow me to select this now? Nope, still no. This is just a big picture. Diffusion of responsibility. Diffusion of responsibility. Okay, how do we think about diffusion of responsibility? That sounds to me like ultimately the most... Okay, we have state, criminal, willful indifference, worse than expected, bigger than expected. I think I'm getting the impression that it might be, I don't know, just looking at this now, it seems like diffusion of responsibility is probably the most likely thing to impact us in the short term. Yeah, maybe we can also then divide their different typology into short, medium, and long. Okay. Automated processes can cause societal harm even when no one in particular is primarily responsible for the creation or deployment of these processes. Perhaps even as a result of the absence of responsibility. The infamous flash crash of 2010 is an instance of this. Numerous stock trading algorithms from a variety of companies interacted in a fashion that rapidly devalued the US stock market by over $1 trillion in a matter of minutes. Fortunately, humans were able to intervene afterward and reverse the damage, but that might not always be possible as AI technology becomes more powerful and pervasive. Consider the following fictional story where the impact of unemployment on crime rates is exacerbated by a cycle of algorithmic predictions. Story 1A. Self-fulfilling pessimism. Scientists develop an algorithm for predicting the answers to questions about a person. It's a function of freely available and purchasable information about the person. Social media, resumes, browsing history, purchasing history, etc. The algorithm is made freely available to the public, and employers begin using the algorithm to screen out potential hires by asking, is this person likely to be arrested in the next year? Courts and regulatory bodies attempt to ban the technology by evoking privacy norms, but struggle to establish cases against the use of publicly available information, so the technology broadly remains in use. Innocent people who share certain characteristics with past convicted criminals end up struggling to get jobs, become disproportionately unemployed, and correspondingly more often commit theft to fulfill basic needs. Meanwhile, police also use the algorithm to prioritize their investigations, and since unemployment is a predictor of property crime, the algorithm leads them to suspect and arrest more unemployed people. Some of the arrests are talked about on social media, so the algorithm learns that the arrested individuals are likely to be arrested again, making it even more difficult for them to get jobs. A cycle of deeply unfair socioeconomic discrimination begins. In the story above, a subset of humanity becomes unfairly disempowered, both economically and legally. It is possible for all of humanity, it is possible, we claim, for all of humanity to become similarly disempowered. That's a powerful kind of analogy. Okay, consider that many systems of production and consumption on Earth currently operate entirely without human involvement, while producing side effects for humans and other life. For instance, algal blooms consume energy from the sun and materials from the surrounding ocean, and as a side effect, they sometimes produce toxins that are harmful to other sea life, as well as human swimmers. It is important to consider the possibility that artificial intelligence systems in the future could also sustain fully self-contained loops of production and consumption that would yield negative side effects for humanity. Okay, fully self-contained loops. What does he mean by in the future? That feels like that is doing a lot of work here. Yeah, I mean, in 100 years, in 50 years, in 5 years, what is in the future? The following diagram illustrates how a few industries, if fully automated through AI technology, could operate in a closed loop of production and consumption without any other inputs. A hypothetical self-contained production web of companies operating with no human involvement. Okay. It's like a self-contained production web. So we're still here. Division of responsibility. Self-contained production web, detaching the AI system from aligning with human values. It seems to me to be what they're up to. Okay. Materials companies provide raw and processed materials, and those go into facilities. Facilities. Okay, wait. Those go into facilities. I think facilities and raw processed materials and all these different things are going into materials companies. But all these different things are also utilized by real estate and construction companies that provide facilities. Facilities and raw processed materials, plus electricity, which is provided by utility companies that are utilizing the entire thing. Okay, that sounds a little bit hard to... I mean, this is... To make this completely decoupled from... This is a massive undertaking. I'm quite skeptical about this approach, but hypothetical self-contained production loop, yeah. Could such a self-contained production web ever pose a threat to humans? One might argue that because AI technology will be created by humanity, it will always serve our best interests. However, consider how many human colonies have started out dependent upon a home nation and eventually gained sufficient independence from the home nation to revolt against it. Could humanity create an AI industry that becomes sufficiently independent of us to pose a global threat? It might seem strange to consider something as abstract or diffuse as an industry posing a threat to the world. However, consider how the fossil fuel industry was built by humans. It is presently very difficult to shut down or even regulate due to patterns of regulatory interference exhibited by all companies in many jurisdictions. Okay, so the idea is like, could AI function as an industry? That's a very cute kind of analogy. Could AI function as an industry? That's pretty interesting. Kind of like the fossil fuel. Fossil fuel. Tobacco industry for many years. Finally, consider how species of ants who feed on acacia trees eventually lose the ability to digest other foods, ending up enslaved to protecting the health of the acacia trees as their only food source. If humanity comes to depend critically on AI technology to survive, it may not be so easy to do away with, even if it begins to harm us, individually or collectively. For illustration of how this might happen, consider the story below. Someday, AI researchers develop and publish an exciting new algorithm for combining NLP and planning capabilities. Various competing tech companies develop management assistant software tools based on the algorithm, which can analyze a company's cash flows, workflows, and communications to recommend more profitable business decisions that also yield positive PR and networking opportunities for managers. It turns out that managers are able to automate their own jobs almost entirely by having the software manage their staff directly. Software tools based on variants of the algorithm sweep through companies in nearly every industry, automating and replacing jobs at various levels of management, sometimes even CEOs. One company develops an engineer assistant version of the assistant software capable of software engineering tasks, including upgrades to the management assistant software. Within a few years, it becomes technologically feasible for almost any human job to be performed by a combination of software and robotic workers that can operate more quickly and cheaply than humans. The global job market gradually begins to avail of this possibility. Huge increase in global economic productivity ensues. Despite the massive turnover in the job market, average quality of life also improves in almost every country, as products and services become cheaper to produce and provide. Most job losses come with generous severance packages, sometimes enough for full retirement. Companies closer to becoming fully automated achieve faster turnaround times, deal bandwidth, and creativity of business-to-business negotiations. Some companies idealistically cling to the idea that human workers must remain integral to their operations. However, they quickly fall behind because they simply can't provide products and services as cheaply as their fully automated competitors. Eventually, almost all companies either fail and shut down or become fully automated. An interesting pattern of trade begins to emerge between a conglomerate of automated companies in materials, real estate, construction, utilities, and freight and logistics industries, along with a new generation of precision manufacturing companies. They can use robots to build almost anything if given the right materials, a place to build, some 3D printers to get started, with an electricity. Together, these companies sustain an increasingly self-contained and interconnected production web that can operate with no input from companies outside the web, while providing an impressive swath of cheap products and services to the rest of the world. I don't know. This just feels like all the difficult work is here, and they haven't quite I mean, couldn't you have said the same thing about software in general, right? Like, oh, you just form these like conglomerations of software based on companies that seem to be, I don't know, like using the web better. And then plus merging any of these, I mean, this is hard to do M&A as it is. The objective of each company in the production web could be loosely described as an amorphous combination of profitability, size, market share, and social status, all learned by emulating the decision-making of human business leaders. These objectives At this point, the story hits an inflection point that is difficult for the characters in it to perceive. In short, the world begins to change in a way that renders the production web a harmful rather than helpful presence. But the change happens so gradually, the collective action against it is difficult to precipitate. Eventually, the change is irreversible. The details of this change, or rather just one way it could play out, constitute the remainder of the story. First, human leaders in more conservative jurisdictions struggle to keep track of how the production web companies are producing so many products and so cheaply, without easily accessible human legible paper trails, auditing attempts to glean little insight. As time progresses, it becomes increasingly unclear, even to the concerned and overwhelmed board members of the fully mechanized companies of the production web, whether these companies are serving or more merely appeasing humanity. We eventually realize with collective certainty that the companies have been trading and optimizing according to objectives misaligned with preserving our long-term well-being and existence, but by then their facilities are so pervasive, secure, and necessary for serving our basic needs that we are unable to stop them from operating. With no further need for the companies to appease humans in pursuing their production objectives. I think one thing that is striking me now, and perhaps this is almost like the purpose of this paper, is that by exploring all the details in which this can go wrong, I see 1,000 ways in which we can intercept and intervene and build better systems that are more resilient. And I could see this in every one of these sentences here. With no further need for the companies to appease humans in pursuing their production objectives, less and less of their activities end up benefiting humanity. Eventually, okay, I think I get the idea. In the story above, rapidly operating institutions tend toward trade and interact with other rapidly operating institutions, thus yielding a collective tendency toward closing the loop on production. Okay. What can be done? Okay, I like this.